Well, good morning and welcome to the select board meeting for March 18th, 2021 at 8 o'clock. We're going to start off with project updates. Mike.
Can we just let people know, we can only see three people on the screen at once. So if you want to talk, you need to let us know or let Chuck know, of course, because we can't see you. So if you raise your hand, it's likely, unless you're Doug or Jack, that we can't see you. Because those are the only two we can see right now. Sorry.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, Mike.
Yep. Yeah. Hi, this is Jack Henderson. I'm participating in this. I'm also running for the planning board seat and wanted to sit in and learn about some of the planning board issues that you guys are discussing today.
That's it. Nice to meet you.
Congratulations.
Put a name with a face is nice.
So just to go over where we are with some of our major projects, Averick Road was bid out. We received in the bids. They came in within the monies that we have available to complete the Averick Road repairs based on the low bidder. Now we have had a challenge to the low bidder, so we are reviewing the low bidder with our engineers to confirm that we will be able to award it. If we are able to award it, then like I said, funds are sufficient. If the low bid gets thrown out, then we have to re-examine whether we have full funds available for the Averick Road and may need to ask for some additional dollars.
And what's order of magnitude difference?
It was 707,000 and 817. So.
And what do we have?
Who is the
we
low
have
bidder?
800, JL Raymaker. Yeah.
So we have 800, and if it comes in 817, what can we close that gap, or do we have to go back to town meeting?
Go back to town meeting. And then there's still some engineering in there, so we won't have enough to finish the project as a whole if it doesn't go, if we're not able to award it to the low bidder. So should know, I'm hoping to know by next week and have this awarded and move on with this project. So right now, as it stands, we're assuming that the low bidder will be certified, and then we can move ahead with the project. So that's what Curtisville Utility Bridge mobilization started last Friday. So they started bringing equipment on site. Mike Buffoni's been out there with them, and construction is beginning. That'll be happening over the next 2-month period. And they'll be putting up the temporary utility bridge and then putting the utilities across the river up above. So that project's underway. Highway garage is nearing completion. They have put the new roof on. So, there's definite good progress being made overall at the highway garage. And we'll close out the punch list items and the remaining items once we get to substantial completion, which is the full completion, sign off, and the rest on the roof. So, but a whole new roofing system was put on. Good for it. Proctor's.
Can we use the old roof at Proctor Hall?
Proctor Hall roof has been repaired.
Oh.
All the repairs are completed. There's one, this Friday, there was one piece that we asked them to come back to look at. So they're meeting with Chris on Friday at 8:30. And then once that's done, the roof will be completely done, and the Proctor Hall roof repair can come off the board completely. So
What's the one piece that need to come back to?
there was, and during the high winds, the hatch actually blew off.
Oh, wow.
So it's not necessarily 100, but they agreed to go up and help us get it fixed and put it on. And then we're gonna have to take a look at it and see whether or not we actually get that one on, but we might have to have another piece put on. But we did, we received 90,000 in funding. This only cost 70,000. So we have a surplus there. So if we have to go and hire somebody to refabricate a new hatch for the roof, we have the funds available. And then the plan is, once we've closed out everything, the roof is secure, we're going to notify the community CPC and let them know that the money can be taken back, that the money on the project was completed. And right now there's 19,000 and something remaining that we will not need, except maybe this hatch.
We use that to cover the 17,000 on the other project.
No, can't move from one project to the other.
Kind of rhetorical, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lighting upgrade. So last, I think it was last spring, the Green Committee got approval to upgrade the lighting in the wastewater treatment plant with LED lighting in order to save additional monies on the on our electric bills. That project has been completed where we've submitted the closeout documents to the state. They're coming up on the 23rd to inspect the work that was done, and then we'll have the complete sign-offs, and that will be another project that will be taken off the board as fully completed. So we're starting to get some of these done and through and off the board and getting ready
And
to.
on the street lighting, that's a separate but related project.
Yes, street lighting's just right now in the preliminary stages, and so the committee's definitely been working, the Green Committee's been working on through a subcommittee, the streetlights, to put together a plan and then a proposal to bring to the select board and explain why, and then what options we have, everywhere from just having National Grid to do it to then us taking over the lighting system, which is now becoming very prevalent. Pittsfield's done it. If you read an Berkshire's, Williamstown did it. They're taking over their lighting. Taking it over yourself can save like 70%, but we'll have a report probably in April from the Green Committee with its recommendations and details on the streetlights. So, but that is another one.
Yeah. Okay.
Larry Wog Bridge. So the Larry Wog Bridge, we've been working with our engineers on developing a re-advertisement for bids. This was definitely the most difficult one because of the stage it was in, what was completed, what wasn't completed, and just getting the project relined up so that it can. We spoke yesterday, we've gone for the first piece of the bidding, which is with a bridge this size, you have to request from the state your pre-qualified bid list. So we did that as of yesterday, and then we will put out the bid through the avenues, typical avenues that we use, but you have to be pre-qualified, and in order to bid on a project like this, you have to be identified by the state as somebody that has the expertise to do the work that's being done because it's a bridge. And then the hope is to have the bid out within the next week or so, with then 2 weeks after that, a closing date and bids in, and then awarding of the bids. If we can keep the timing where it is now, the plan is to have it completed over this construction season with completion of the project in the fall. So.
So when would actual construction in this timeline reasonably begin? So we get asked that a lot.
We're probably looking at late May, early June with a push through the summer.
And when does construction season end?
Construction season around here usually ends around Thanksgiving.
Okay, so we're thinking it's likely May. How?
It will definitely be down for July and August and into September. And then you'll be doing the finish up. We are requesting an end date of October something, but obviously you get into weather, you always have to assume there's going to be things that are going to push you back that are days that they can't do. We will be pushing this. It's an aggressive schedule. So one of the things by pushing an aggressive schedule is it could push the bids up a little bit.
All right.
And the other reason why we want to get this out to bid, and that is if this one does not come in and we need any additional amounts, we want to be able to put that onto the town meeting warrant. So right now, we're not into, so far, every project we've gone out and rebid, we've been able to rebid, and it's been within, but this one's a very tricky one, and we're not sure how exactly it'll play out, but we should be knowing very shortly on that. So those are the major projects that are all underway. And then.
So you mentioned two that potentially could go over. One is the second bid on obviously Averick, and the other is Larry Wog. Is there anything we can do in the FY 2022 budget to give us some flexibility if we're 10 or 20 grand short, like you're saying. I don't want to have to wait to another town meeting to finish these kind of projects. And I'm wondering if we can just simply have sort of like a construction reserve fund, if you will, that we could authorize a town meeting, but only spend if we're within 5%, let's say, or something like that. Because
So typically when you go out to, the only thing that's pushing these back is that obviously the bids, you have your engineer drop the bid specs. They usually put, when we're going to town meeting, they're putting anywhere from 20 to 40% in contingencies to make sure that if the bids do come in higher, that you're not where you can't award the project. But now when you talk about projects that were originally identified bid out 2 years ago, the odds of those estimates, your typical change is somewhere in the neighborhood of 4% to the total project and that. And then, of course, with Larry Wog, you've got re-engineering costs and other things. So these were not expected to happen. So these have driven some of the costs up. So far, we've been able to come in under. Typically, when you see a project come forward, we're building in contingencies to cover those costs so we can award the contract. And then once you award it, change orders and the rest, then you can look at what you can do. The problem is that if they don't come in and we don't have funds available, we can't even award it.
Right.
So it's not even, after the fact, we found an issue and now we need to bring it back. We can't even award it. But right now we're optimistic. We think the funding's available. Larry Wog, we have 1.2 million still available to close out the remainder of that project. And the good news is yesterday, finally, even though the state told me that they had approved the Mass Works grant, the 700, we got the paperwork signed. So now it's like, okay, there's nothing. So all 3 grants now we have official sign-offs that have been extended to June 30th, 2022. So if these projects all get completed over this season, we're done, we close out. And then it also opens us up for going after our next applications, such as, which we're starting already, is Averitt Road Bridge 2. And then looking at the Mass Works program, are there any other larger projects? And that should probably be the discussion that we need to have next year about Curtisville, the actual Curtisville Bridge, and where we're going with that, and then look at Mass Works or something else as possibilities. So that's where we stand with the projects.
Any comments from anybody out there on that? Okay. Regional School Department Planning Board report.
Oh,
Patrick?
fun. Well, the good news is that they're reducing the ask from 15,000 to 8,000 because we got a $125,000 grant from the state. So I don't know if that paperwork's come through from them yet, but we're gonna. I think that we approved the number of 15. Then from there, it's we're looking at a 2 to 5 year process. So thanks, by the way, for giving me those 2 meetings a month. It's going to be an interesting academic exercise. What I think is interesting about it is that the conversation last month really focused around incremental things we could do, like shared services or shared administrative costs, or obviously, as somebody who took the bus to Searles as a kid, and that was like an hour and 10 minutes. The idea of trudging down to wherever it is, Sheffield or Egremont or wherever, Mount Everett is, I think it's Sheffield, right?
Yeah.
That I think it's a non-starter for us in the northern end of the district. But, if there are some incremental things we could do that would allow us to share some costs, that's worth exploring. We'll see where it goes. That's all I got. Oh, hey.
Hey, Chief.
You guys started already?
Yeah.
You're on TV?
We are. Come in, say hi.
You can come in.
Sorry, I thought you didn't start till 9.
No, 8 o'clock meeting.
We're not on the agenda today?
No, we're gonna be on next Thursday.
Next Thursday?
Yep.
Thanks, Chief. Okay. Bylaw warrants. Let's start with the driveways and common driveways. Now we're all more confused this morning when we started, so where we're at.
Well, I would say we refer to what Ned put together, and his only concern about the wording is he wanted it to be specific to all new driveways. So we have a 6.16.1 that Ned has done, and it reads, the building inspector shall not issue a building permit for the principal structure on the lot served by a new driveway unless all of the conditions in 6.16.1 have been met. And then he has stricken, all new driveways shall be constructed in a manner ensuring reasonable and safe access. So, and then a building permit shall only be issued if a new driveway shows due consideration. So he struck that out. And then it continues with the minimum area and configuration of a new driveway shall be such to provide a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces as defined by section 6.2.4 for each lot served by the driveway. So that's the only change.
So it just simplifies it.
Can we,
It's very simple. And I think he feels that that is a lot clearer because we want to be very clear that it's new driveways, not existing driveways
So
or existing properties.
2 questions. One is process and 2 is substance. Process, maybe we could try to work toward having this sort of feedback before it gets referred to us. I mean, honestly, this is sort of, it makes it much more confusing as we go through the rest of the process if these are happening after the fact. And the second is, we do have a lot of small lots in this town, around Beechwood, around many places. And I'm just asking if everyone's comfortable with the requirement for 2 cars rather than 1.
I am.
It's gotta be 2 cars.
It's got to be 2 cars? Okay.
I'm fine with it.
so just process, so these were referred to you. We have to go by what was referred to us is what we're referring back to them. And they'll hold their hearings and make any changes. But in the case of both of what's being said, we can send it with our comments, asking them to consider striking those 2 sections. I will point out that that when me and Ned looked at it, Ned brought his concerns. Somebody might say, why are we talking about striking the one that says, safe exit onto the road? That is because a driveway permit doesn't need to address that. That's actually addressed in the curb cut, which then the highway superintendent and the police chief have to sign off that putting a curb cut here and allowing access onto the road is done in a safe manner. It's really something the building inspector is not necessarily trained in or would handle. That would be handled under the curb cut. So we can just, we'll refer them back with a recommendation for the changes that have been presented. It's up to them. They'll ultimately hold the public hearing and then decide which course.
So just to summarize then, right now, the current bylaw does not require a driveway for new construction. And this will now require a driveway with parking for 2 cars. And that is, the thing we're trying to fix is making sure that there's off-street parking. And we're doing that with this one change to 6.1.6, 6.16.1. All right.
Pretty basic.
So,
Can
What's the
I
issue?
just
What is
comment,
it?
please?
hi, Christine.
Comment. The reason for this is to address health and safety. Because without the driveway permits, we have seen an increased number of cars parking on the streets. And our streets do not really have the ability to handle parking, particularly in the winter. But overall, it's a problem. So that's why we started with this bylaw. And it was at the request of Ned. There's been a lot of back and forth. And the planning board has also received the language that you presented from Phil and Donna. And I thought everybody was in agreement with that language at this point. But as was said, we have to go to the hearing. It gets the discussion rolling, and then we have a period of time to submit amendments back to you. So I'm hoping that this can happen fairly easily now that everybody hopefully is on the same page. We'll see.
Christine, did you mean what I just read, which was from Ned, that basically you feel that the planning board is all right with that?
I do. Phil sent it out to the planning board after his last conversation with Ned. And
Okay.
as far as I have not heard anything, but it would have perhaps been ex parte after the meeting. So, but as far as I know, this was the intention of the bylaw. The intention and the wording sometimes have some difficulty working together. And this was an example. They say you never want to watch sausage and legislation being written. And I think we can prove that. But hopefully now everything is going to work well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're set on the driveway, correct? We'll send that.
So we're gonna refer the original one. We're gonna suggest our edits. Then at the hearing, they're going to hear more comments, and then the planning board has a chance to fix it before it goes to warrant.
Okay, so we don't have to vote on it. We're set on that. We're gonna send it.
Right.
You got to vote or?
Yeah, if you're voting it with these comments, that's because this is officially coming from the board.
I'll make a motion that we send this driveway with the comments
Be read into the record.
right into the record and sent to the planning board.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Yay.
got one
No.
done. And what is today's date?
And
Today
just for your information, the planning board did vote to hold a hearing on Tuesday night for the amendments the amendment for the business district you approved at your last meeting last week. So that hearing should be we're hoping the second meeting in April. We cannot vote to hold our public hearing until our meeting, which will be the first Tuesday in April. And so they probably, with the time lagging and having to advertise for 2 weeks, the first advertisement has to appear at least 14 days before the hearing is held. We probably.
See, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, I'm getting confused.
Yeah. First of all, can you clarify that? Are you saying that the planning board has changed its recommended bylaw from on Tuesday night? I wasn't there Tuesday because of the MVP meeting.
No, we haven't changed.
No, they haven't set the
anything.
hearings.
I'm just telling you that on Tuesday night, we voted to hold a hearing on the bylaw that you sent back to us last week.
Okay. All right, thanks.
So
Okay.
that will be probably we're hoping because we have to go through the process of advertising according to state law. And
Right.
Yeah, we got
so
that.
that's
Yeah,
why-
Jen's working on it.
Okay. That bylaws the business downstairs. Perfect. Okay. So next we have the
we can.
off-street parking.
Okay. Well,
That's confusing though, right?
yeah, there's an awful lot of changes here, and so I had written up a change, which was pretty straightforward, which I think basically accomplishes the goal. And the goal was to protect, basically, everybody is non-conforming downtown for retail and eateries, with the exception of Michael's Restaurant, which owns its own parking lot. But no one can comply with the bylaws. So that was the biggest concern. Why have a bylaw where no one is in compliance? And there's a whole lot of changes. This entire 6.2.1 has all been changed. It's all the way down the line. And it would seem to me, and the other thing is when this is read, now is it changed again since the first one we got? It says off-street parking spaces shall be provided for every new structure, enlargement of existing and development of a new use or any change in existing use in accordance with the following schedule. And then business district now is A, which that is not the case. So this is totally restructured. And then, so I'm totally confused just looking at this, and I'm familiar with the bylaw. My concern was what we saw in our last meeting indicated that basically there were no parking restrictions at all for hotels. So it seems to me, when I looked at this, 6.2.1, and it would read the same way as it does now. Off-street parking spaces shall be provided for every new structure, the enlargement of an existing structure, the development of a new use or any change in an existing use in accordance with the following schedule. Then adding, with the exception of retail and eating establishments within the downtown Stockbridge Village Business Zoning District as shown on the zoning map insert, period. And then nothing else changes with the exception of C. We just strike C, which was specific to the business district. So in doing that, we are accepting eateries and we are accepting retail establishments in the downtown zoning district from having off-street parking. But everything else would still apply.
And
So
Phil
Christine, you
sent
can tell
that-
me if the planning board had a completely different objective here.
This is what Roxanne read is the language, the last language we got from Phil, the planning board received from Phil also.
So you have a copy, you were sent a copy of what I sent to him?
I got a copy from Phil and he sent it to the planning board. So I don't know exactly where it came, how it's evolved. I know there've been a lot of conversations with various people. So I think that this is the language that everyone is working with, which would be, again, an amendment to the highlighted portion that Roxanne just read would be an amendment that would probably be recommended after the public hearing.
All right.
Okay, so we could send this. we
Wait,
could send
wait. We're not ready yet. Okay, so first of all, it would be really helpful if the drafts had the date on them. Because I've got like 7 versions of this bylaw that keep getting forwarded around and it's impossible to know other than trying to look at the file header, but the file date doesn't preserve when you download them to your computer. So the last one you downloaded has the most recent date. And it'd be great if just right underneath the BRPC logo, we could have the date that this was written. Having said that, the comments that Jennifer sent out on March 12th are different than the comments that Michael just gave us. However, in the comments that Jennifer sent out on March 12th, comment PA3 says, this should be, in referring to the business district, it said this should be removed, is the only subsection which references a zoning district rather than a specific use, so it is not consistent with the rest of the bylaw. And yet, we then have a final version, which in contradiction to what the professional planner told us, actually refers to the business district and exempts all parking in it. And I don't really understand how we got from what Roxanne recommended to this. And I can't, frankly, I spent 4 hours on this last night and I can't follow it. It's just too many versions. So
Confused. And everything is changing in this latest draft. Like, A, B, and then C is stricken, and then D becomes C, et cetera, all the way down the line. So the entire thing is restructured. It was restructured in the last draft version too, completely.
Can't we
So,
just send
I mean, this is really,
bylaw with this and say,
No.
this is what we're recommending and sending to the.
that would be
So
my
there's-
idea.
The process here is that you have the one that's referred from the planning board and you have to refer that one back. And you could refer with your comments to be read into the record. So if you felt as though this was not appropriate, you could resubmit it back to them to hold the public hearing with a statement that if you felt as though this is something you don't think should proceed, you could put it on the record that the select board does not support this. Then B, the one that Roxanne has, you can also submit, because the select board is an initiating body for zoning bylaws. You could submit that one to the planning board at the same time.
Okay,
So they would have to basically hear both the select board's version and the planning board version, and the planning board version would have the comment from the select board. If it,
Okay.
if
Here's
it,
the only problem I have with that, and you know, and I'm happy to defer to you on this one because I trust you, but. You know, if we take a week to read what you did, because I sort of was following what you said, but I don't have a copy and we can't talk outside the meeting. So, you know, the fact is that we're about to basically, because we only have one day left, we're about to basically, without really having studied it. Yeah, I mean, I can look at it now, but I'm not gonna.
simple.
You know, all I'm saying is that if we don't refer them back at the same time, then they've got to hold two separate meetings. And it just becomes yet another kind of weird situation.
Nobody's suggesting though that we do these at different times.
No, so the motion should
Don't
be,
submit them at the same time.
I know, but I just haven't even,
But the problem is that this is the way the system is set up. You've got 14 days to respond to something that's sent to you.
Right.
I just,
Now the clock started.
we're not running the city of Chicago here. Folks who need to be on board in terms of these decisions need to be talking before things get referred. Because the fact that Ned on the last one hadn't weighed in yet, and the fact that Roxanne on this one hadn't weighed in yet,
Well,
suggests to hold on, suggests to me,
excuse me, over a year ago,
oh, I know.
this is what I presented.
Oh, I get it.
So it's been discussed many.
I'm not at all criticizing you.
okay, so,
Patrick, if
I
you
want to
could,
make that clear.
I just suggest that maybe we have like a joint meeting to kind of review things before we go through the formal process that locks everybody in and creates this crazy confusion around the process.
okay, so we're locked into this, so the motion should be, make a motion that we forward the planning board's recommendation without our approval,
No, yeah,
correct?
negative determination.
Their comments.
And with our comments of, we're recommending this version, Roxanne's version.
Mhm.
To be,
and if we could take 1 second, Patrick, to just look at Roxanne, it actually is adding one sentence and striking one. That's it.
Okay, no, like I said, I,
solves the issue.
It wasn't in your, yeah.
yeah,
The
So-
other changes that Phil has in here has to do with like, well, some places apparently said space and some said parking space, so he wants to change all that's fine. I mean, if they want to do that, that's fine. I just think the simpler we keep this, the more understandable it is.
and he recommended against what the final bylaw that's been referred to us says. He said it right in this comment PA3.
Okay, so let's,
So just we need a motion that you're referring the planning board back. And then what your comment will be, which is the select board does not support.
does not support it. We should, and submitting this version for the consideration. Got a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sign.
Okay. Moving on. You want to address this one? Who wants to start out on this one?
Oh, you do. This is the one.
Quite frankly, I don't know. It's so huge because we're getting this entire thing back, so it's still. One of my concerns is, and I have to go over. I think the decal part was fine. I think it's something like limited to 15%. But they're removing the select board from any.
Yeah.
Any kind of sign permits. And the reason that I would be concerned about that, I'm not worried about temporary signs. Obviously the planning board does temporary or permanent signs. And we typically see the temporaries. And what I worry about is the practicality of having the planning board receive all the myriads of temporary signs, requiring permits. And we have a pretty routine schedule here in town hall. They come into town hall, they sit in the selectman's office as we cycle through the office during the week. We read them, we see them. If there's any issue about where that sign's going to be placed, the placement, usually Teresa's already kind of investigated it. And so she gives her input and then we individually sign these things. So I worry about just the practicable aspect of implementation if everything goes through the planning board.
Yeah, would they wait every 2 weeks to sign off on them? Because a lot of these come in like on a Monday for the following weekend.
Right,
If they don't have a meeting that week, then that permit doesn't get signed off.
exactly. Yeah, a lot of these don't come in way in advance. They're not coming in a month in advance. So, what are they proposing that the procedure be for those actually being approved?
And I just want to add that things have worked this way in this town for decades, all right? And I think that the first conversation, we're going to change the permitting authority on any proposal. That should be a joint meeting between the select board and the planning board where we all agree that the change of the permitting authority before we even start working on this stuff is something we can all agree to. Because otherwise, we're going to just keep setting up these fights at town meeting about who's going to be able to be the decision maker. And look, you guys have been through the signs before. I didn't even know what you just said, but it makes sense to me. But the fact that this conversation is happening after this is referred is once again just a problem in process that I think should be addressed way earlier than it is being addressed.
My understanding was that Bill contacted all three of you about this language. I was not involved with that, so I do not know what the conversations were, but he came back and reported to the planning board that all three of you had agreed informally to this. So this was how the bylaw was built. So
Yeah,
I,
he did
I
talk
don't know.
and quickly, yeah, I did say, either way, it wasn't too big of a deal for me. But then when we really got into how it works, and it would have been nice to have how you guys were gonna do this. That part of it, because, just talking on the phone quickly, yeah, sounds good, but then when you get back and kind of think about it, are you gonna come in, somebody will come in, how many people have to sign off from the planning board? Does it have to be a percentage?
Probably has to be a quorum, I would.
A quorum, and looking back, like if somebody hands a permit on a Monday for a tag sale on a Saturday and you guys don't meet to the following Tuesday, whatever, how does that work? So that hasn't been worked out. So I would kind of recommend that we take that out of it for now. The select board will stay as the authority for that until even next year we can change it once
Well,
if it works out. But right now, the details aren't worked out enough to make it work, I don't believe.
right. And the big question is, Christine, since you're on the planning board, maybe you can answer this. What's the actual reason for changing something that has been in place for who knows how long and works perfectly well?
I think the feeling was that the planning board was looking at the signs that this whole process started, I think, as you recall, Roxanne, because you were the one who gave us the language, was the Lost Lamb wanted to put 2 signs in their facade. And we started working with how to allow that. And it's not easy because of all the other issues surrounding signs. And so I think we were not as concerned about the temporary signs as we are about the signs that potentially could be in the facade of buildings.
This does have to do with the permitting.
Has nothing to do with the permitting of temporary signs. You already have control over those signs.
The selectmen have some control on some of those larger signs, and we thought that, or it was recommended that they be with the planning board, but we would just, I think the issue is here again with not knowing when Governor Baker is going to lift the ability to allow towns to not comply with their zoning
What
bylaws.
difference?
What is going to happen to the lost lamb signs? And
Well,
maybe.
we're not here to talk about the lost lamb signs. We're here to talk about the bylaw change.
And bylaw changes are.
Thing, though,
But that's
that I-
why you have it in front of you.
But this also touches upon the other thing that I thought about after giving this a good deal of thought was because we are in this situation right now, we're in a state of emergency. At some point, the previous board with Terry and Chuck and I, we basically lifted restrictions on signage because of the difficult time that businesses are having, and we wanted to support our businesses, and that does end when the state of emergency ends. However, by taking away from the select board the ability to even do that in a state of emergency, we were able to lift restrictions. There is nothing to say that throughout the rest of Stockbridge's history, we will never have a state of emergency again, or similar circumstances where we feel the need to actually support our businesses by being a little less restrictive when they're under the gun, when they're having difficult times commercially. So that's another concern in terms of this. So I just don't understand what the rationale is, because I think in terms of permitting authority, I think that it works quite well right now.
So what if we just not recommend this one and take it off the table?
Well, we have to comment.
That we don't
Yeah.
We don't support this, and we'll deal with this out of
Well,
next.
we don't support the change of permitting authority. I don't know that, does anybody have a problem with any of the other verbiage that's changed in here?
No, I think, well, I'm going to defer to you. You're the one who thought it out.
So I make a motion that we pass this along with the permitting process staying this, we recommend the permitting process stay the same.
The permitting authority.
Permit authority stays.
Yeah, permitting authority. Assuming that.
If it isn't worked out, it isn't, it's going to create all kinds of issues, I believe. Then it goes to public hearing, they can comment on it then, and
Right.
if you have to make changes, we'll make changes then. So it's not killing it, it's just our recommendation. So I'll make a motion, we pass along the sign regulations, our recommendations that the permitting, the select board permitting process stays the same.
Be read into the record at the
Brings a record.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And my
Okay.
strong suggestion is on other bylaws, if there's going to be a change in the permitting authority, we talk about this early
Yeah.
as two boards and get on the same page, because I've seen drafts of other bylaws where there's similar changes in authority, and I don't want to be asked by a consultant informally. I want our boards, all 10 of us, to sit in a room or sit on Zoom and kind of talk all this through, because this is, you know, this is potential for conflict where we can avoid it.
Right. I mean, and Christine, just having an informal conversation with someone prior to us even seeing the actual bylaw change that's being proposed, you know, obviously, we're going to put more thought into it over time, and various aspects come up, you know, that come to mind once you start really poring over the details. So, you know, that's probably not a very reliable way to get an opinion of a board. The reliable way is to sit as a board, as Patrick suggests, you know, with the two boards discussing this in advance together.
As I said, I really wasn't that involved with this development of this bylaw. I think that it's communication is important. I think under COVID, we've had a lot of issues with just having good open communications. And I think that the more communications there are, the better. And I hope that in the future that happens. I also know that there are a lot of restrictions in Chapter 48, Section 5 that have to be complied with when you're adopting bylaws. So
Well, you
you
named them.
might in your free time want to just review those.
What's that one again,
So
Christina?
everybody is on the same page as to what the process is. And the selectmen at any time have the right to submit a petition to the planning board on anything that deals with zoning that is allowed, and then this process moves forward. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity in the future to make the process better. We've learned, everyone has learned through this process. The simple ideas are not easy to get into language, as everyone has found out. And I think everybody's intentions were good and everyone was trying. And I hope that is the message, rather than something that reflects a lot of conflict. We've had conflict in the final language, but it really is not conflict as much as it is a discussion about everyone's point of view. And that's how things should be.
Perfect.
I'm not gonna dance around this.
No,
On Tuesday's meeting, I only caught the second half of it, but a planning board member said that they're gonna be taking over the cottage era permitting. Okay, that has not been discussed with this board. This board as a board has not weighed in. And if you guys don't come to us and meet with us together, I will oppose, not only that, but I will oppose any appropriation for you guys going forward. We are not going to sit here and not have these discussions in advance. This is not something that I want to react to with 14 days on something as giant as parcels that could be hundreds of acres in size. So I'm being absolutely clear, Christine, that we need to come and we need to have this discussion before you guys get very far down the line on some of this stuff. And I am okay if these two tell me that they're okay. But if they don't tell me they're okay, then there is absolutely no way I'm going to support, reacting to something that comes in, and it seems like the planning board thinks that this is a de facto thing that's been decided.
I don't feel that way at all. I think we were concerned about the deadline for the town meeting warrant. And so we had to condense things because then it was less than ideal, because we wanted to get these issues before the town for the warrant, so that when Governor Baker lifted his emergency provisions, that we would have some protections, particularly with the parking and the signs for those businesses that would be impacted.
I'm not talking about
So-
those.
Okay, let's move on. We're good. Yeah, we're gonna work together. Not an issue.
Right, and the pressure, once we hit on the next topic, Christina, I think you'll see that the pressure is not quite as overbearing as you have perceived it to be, based on the date of the annual town meeting.
Right, but we didn't know that at the time. So there was a lot, when we were moving these forward, it was 6 weeks ago or whatever. So we tried to do what, and I'm only one member, and I certainly am not speaking for the whole board during any of this, but I think the board's feeling was, let's make sure we have something on the warrant so that we can at least have a discussion and make a determination as to how we move forward. So the fact that you have a problem with the language is not a problem, because there's options to correct any concerns before the items do get to town meeting.
Yep, perfect. No, we appreciate everything you're doing. We really do. Thank you. Okay, any comments from anybody out there at this point? Okay, seeing none. Logistics, potential Saturday meeting. So we probably should pick a date in June.
Town meeting, I think.
Yeah, so Mass General Law 39, Chapter 39, Section 9 allows the selectmen to delay an annual town meeting, provided that the business is completed by June 30th. It's a simple vote of move to delay the annual town meeting until blank, pursuant to Section 39, Chapter 39, Section 9. So one of the considerations that we have to give is that there's a lot of talk that a lot of the restrictions, like for gatherings and the rest are gonna be lifted. But similar to restaurants, there's a lot of talk that they're gonna still be maintaining the 6-foot distance. Which then when we apply that to like our gym, if we have to maintain 6 feet between groups, we're only talking 30-something people can be in the gym.
Can we do it outdoors in June?
Yeah.
That's what we're thinking is, that's what I was gonna get to, is that we think that by June, because our meeting is typically the third Monday in May, but holding it on a Monday in the evening, if it goes long, could put it in the night. Now you gotta think about lights, then you have to think about mosquitoes, everything else. So probably the best thing to do would be to put it on a Saturday. And then establish a rain date for that Saturday, because obviously you're dealing with a outdoor venue at that time.
What is your thought on, traditionally, town meeting happens before the election? And are we able to continue that even if we move to June? Because we.
Yeah, election still
We
happened
did delay
just the way it did, just like last year.
Delayed elections last year.
I thought the elections got moved a month.
No,
No.
election,
They're
Yeah,
fine.
we did. I got elected in June.
You were already elected by the time we had our.
I understand that, but we still moved the election.
yeah, but there,
I was elected in June.
you might have, because you might have last year, but there were a bunch of provisions last year that aren't in effect this year.
Right.
Such as last year, they allowed you to move your elections. They were allowing you to move your town meeting past June 30th. You held it actually in
Right.
July and do continuation. Those things have not been enacted yet. So right now, the one piece that you can do is just a town meeting, because they do realize this section of law actually exists outside of the emergency declaration. Actually, at any time, the board can vote to delay it. So.
I do think
mean-
the town meeting informs the elections. And the tradition is that it happens before the election. And so I want, can we do it outside the weekend before the election? It's May, people can wear a sweater. I just feel like that tradition is important, personally.
Is there any way we could move the election? You're saying there's no way?
Not at this, I can check with Terry to see if there's been any changes to the fact of the election. I know there's pushes, there's things like early voting, things like that are coming through from the states as we're now moving toward the time that elections happen within the state.
Right.
But unless there's actually something that allows us to move the election, we can't. We can move town meeting though.
Is the election in our bylaws? That's the third week in May?
Yeah, the dates are set, the elections are set, and you can't change. You are allowed to change town meeting.
I'm just saying, we could do an outdoor town meeting May 15th or whatever it is, on a Saturday.
That pushes things up closer and tighter. So,
Yeah, well, you know what,
and the other thing we could consider is some of these items do not get on
yeah, that's right.
holding a fall town meeting specifically around bylaws.
Right.
And maybe focus the regular town meeting. And we don't have to make the decision today. I wanted to put it on the agenda to begin thinking about
Okay.
the logistics of when are we gonna hold it? I believe it should be on a Saturday,
Yes.
just so that you start it early enough, early afternoon, and you have plenty of light in the rest. We set up like last year, similar setup and the rest. I attended last year's one. I've heard, seemed to go well.
Very well.
And then we just need to coordinate, with departments of getting equipment and other stuff and setting up that way. So we can just continue this to the next meeting. I'll get from Terry I'll check with Terry, our town clerk, to see if there's any options on the election. But that would have to come from a special act. That would come through an emergency provision or something. And there were those in last year. Right now, the only one that we can work off of that exists right now is the ability to move town meeting. So
Okay, what do you guys think on that one? Is it more important to delay the town meeting and have it indoors, or is it more important?
Well, we're not gonna have it indoors.
What?
We won't
Probably.
be able to have it indoors. Even if.
I thought you were just talking about the gym.
That's,
Social distance.
no, I said that we probably will not be able to use the gym, therefore requiring us to do it outdoors. which then puts it back. And actually, I have to check because I don't believe we can, because the wording of the law is the selectmen may delay annual town meeting. So you can't move it before, you have to push it back.
What does that mean?
You can only delay
Can't
town. meeting.
schedule it before the election.
It'd have to be a
Yes,
Monday
the law
after.
says the selectmen may delay the annual town meeting. If you advance it, it's a special town meeting. You can only delay the annual.
Okay,
So I'm just reading the language right now. It's right in front of me.
This is.
The selectmen may delay.
Every level of government, how these laws get written.
okay, so can't move it forward, so let's do
Can't
it
move it forward. You can only delay it because people are expecting it on that date.
in
Don't,
June.
like I said, there's no need to make a decision
Why not? I mean,
today.
Well, we can discuss a date for June and then look into whether or not we could move the election.
Right. Which I could come back at the next meeting with whether or not they're gonna allow us to move the election.
I kind of get it. I'm not that worried.
I don't care about moving it. I mean, it's just. Okay, so the June, we got the 5th, the 12th, and the 26th, the 19th is a holiday.
Oh, yeah, yeah. June 19th is now a holiday,
Yeah.
right?
So,
19th is a holiday?
yeah,
It's
it's
a new holiday,
18th or whatever.
Oh,
Juneteenth.
jeez.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So we could do the 12th with the next day, the 13th as a rain.
I think it's a good holiday for the record.
Listen,
I like
this
that.
one, and I'm glad.
I mean, I'm self-employed. I work every day.
And that's how we did it last year. The Saturday was the date and then the rain date was Sunday. And I think we had to move it to the afternoon because of churchgoers.
All right.
But
12th and the 13th.
And we need time, the rest.
we
So
wanna
like
do?
I said, I put on more to be just a discussion point.
But I just.
Why don't I go back and check with Terry on the election and then place it on the next meeting just for the vote at the next meeting with the date and time set? Now that I know the feeling,
So the 12th and the 13th tentative.
tentative, and I will place on the agenda for a vote, and I will get the answer as to whether or not they're allowing us to make any moves to the annual election. And I'll report back to the selectmen at the next meeting.
Hey, possible warrant articles.
I'm not ready to talk about anything today.
No, well, good. I'm good with that right now. You good with that right now, Patrick?
This
So we
big,
just do like a status report kind of thing, just a real quick one. With the housing, are we working with Donna on the housing trust fund and housing repair trust fund? You know, we have 100,000 coming out from CPC for the housing trust fund. We're talking about 100,000 from free cash, I think, for the housing repair trust fund. I mean, that's what is in the capital budget.
Yep.
And if we're gonna do these things, we have to do the paperwork before town meeting, because we can't appropriate to somebody that doesn't exist. So that's one that I think we should talk about, sort of similar to our bylaws. I think we should talk about it rather than, before we do the work, we should make sure we're all on the same page, that these are good ideas, because you know, and what the parameters of those ideas are. So that's kind of just one that we need to sort of, you know, get on top of.
Yep.
I would like to try to, maybe in the next 2 weeks, try to finalize the short-term rental one. You know, I'm okay with just going with the regulatory, but I do think that's that we should put something on the website that gives, before we refer it to the planning board or wherever we have to refer it, we should post it. Once we've agreed on the language, we should post it so that neighbors and all the rest can comment on it, you know.
Well, this does not, that would not have to go to the planning.
I know.
Bylaw. So
well, that's where Donna's questioning whether or not it
Yeah.
wouldn't be.
Yeah, she did. She said this
Oh,
yes.
may be zoning.
This may be zoning,
really,
Yeah.
because I guess it's been pushed back when it's not been in zoning.
Yeah.
really?
So that, because she sent this
Why we
the other
didn't have
day,
that
right,
earlier.
about we need to identify where this is going. Because she's presuming it's in the zoning bylaws, because remember,
There's nothing in the zone.
zoning bylaws compared to general bylaws are usually things that impact like curb cuts and stuff. They're part of the town's infrastructure and the rest. Zoning bylaws,
Right.
the reason why you have to have public hearings and the rest on these is because they impact how somebody can use private property.
Okay,
And therefore, when push comes to shove, anything that's restricting the use of somebody's own home needs to be vetted through public hearings and the zoning process. So we have to do that. This goes back to what I just said. Could be something we may have to take a serious consideration for is which one of these could be pulled out to hold, say, a July or August special town meeting specifically addressing zoning so that we're not rushing to get these done.
I get it.
I'm kind of concerned that Donna is just letting us know now that it is under zoning. This has been under discussion for months and months. So to be finding out this now, I mean, if we had.
I mean, to be fair, she did say that to me when I was working with my expanded version of what this might be. When I was working with her, she said the same thing to me. So.
Never said that to me.
And she's not necessarily saying it has to, but saying, I presume, and I probably because
Right.
it might
Because
leave you
it is
open.
usage within a
Right, it might leave it open to challenges that otherwise you would want to get taken care of. And now that puts a lot
Right.
of timing
It won't fit.
coming,
We got too many things.
very much an issue.
Way too busy to,
Yeah, exactly.
so.
I'm just saying that we have, and I know we're not doing it, we're doing it for the whole town, but we don't get this done at this town meeting. A lot of people are gonna be disappointed.
Yeah, I know, but you gotta do it right.
Plan on setting in the next month or so, a special one out.
To do.
Set it now, specifically addressing these, which if we're talking, maybe if we're doing one June 11th, we do something like August or June 12th, and we do something 2 months later.
Can we just not do it in outdoors at the end of the day?
And that, it may be something we just need to consider, that we need to hold one town meeting to get the stuff that has to be done. We'll have some that need to, like the housing, because they have to happen before you can appropriate the funds for it. Line up those that need to happen there, and then the rest.
Let's, who's on the planning, who from the planning board is on the call still? Christine, are you there?
The individuals,
Yes,
Can you guys, or can you check with your board to see if you could live with a July or August zoning special town meeting? And we would just basically, because obviously, we really want to get the short-term rental one, from the point of view of just the limited one done. But, so we're not trying to delay it, but, can we see if that's something that everybody can get on board with? I would rather get the planning board's input before we make that decision.
Well,
I just don't want to not be putting things in the warrant that they give us unless, everything can be perceived as acrimonious rather than,
I don't think it has to be. I think it's just a matter of how quickly can we pull this together and do a public hearing. So, I mean, I don't know that there's a whole lot of work to be done on that particular one, on the short-term rental.
And we're gaining time now.
well, are you saying you don't want the July or August meeting?
Well, let's-
Or you want to?
I don't know that we necessarily need it. I'm just saying we may be able to accomplish this as well as these other three
We gained,
for annual.
we gained a
town
month.
meeting, because we're
Correct.
annual.
gained a
town
month,
meeting
Patrick.
is June, potentially in June.
We gained 4 weeks.
Okay.
So we
So-
have more time.
Got more time. And if we can't get it done right, then we're not gonna push something through that.
Right.
Just to push through.
I get it. No, I get it. That's why I like the idea of the July or
That's what I'm
August.
saying, because if we're delaying annual town meeting until June, then.
We got
have
time.
Time for this, because I think this has been hammered out pretty well.
Yeah, it's pretty much there.
Okay.
And if for some reason we get a bylaw that we don't like, stuff.
We got a final draft last week, right, of what Michael and Donna were proposing? Or was that?
I'll see that.
that was the initial draft, and I do have the final one. It only came in last night. And
Okay, can you send that out to us?
Round, and right.
And then we'll go over it next meeting.
Is that something that we could post? I don't know if you guys want to talk about it before we post it, but I just think, I think the more that folks have the
Let's look at it first.
substance of what we have.
We should see it.
You gotta see it
first.
first.
Once we think it's fine, then there's no reason not to post it.
It's just that the public can't then comment on what we're talking about, and not that,
They did in the previous meeting when we had it on the agenda.
all right, that's
We had
fine.
people, that were here and they commented. So they've had the opportunity and they'll still have the opportunity.
Yeah, that's one,
Yeah,
we made a promise we're gonna get it done, so I'm trying to keep that
I'd
promise.
like to get it done.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, any comments from anybody out there for anything?
Oh, I have a question. Are we not doing the appointments today that we talked about last week?
Nothing on the agenda.
Oh, I didn't, sorry, I'll have that on for the
Okay.
next
Do
meeting.
we get people interested?
You announced it at the last one. I haven't heard from anybody else. So right now we have Miles Moffett interested in the Green Committee and
Lisa Bizzuto.
Lisa Bizzuto.
Okay, we'll
Harry
do that
Johnson
next,
For conservation.
Oh, has he? All right.
Wait,
next Thursday. So if anybody wants
What
to,
was that?
Harry Johnston.
Wants to be on conservation?
Conservation.
so we got conservation,
And Green Committee.
green committee and,
And that was it. But it looks like we might have two people interested in one spot for the conservation.
okay,
No,
Right. So
I can't be reappointed anyway. I mean, Lisa's got 11 years of experience, but if Gary wants to do the alternate, I think that that's fine. I'd be happy to resign.
We're not voting on it today. So
yeah, we can't vote on it.
All right.
we'll wait.
That'll be next Thursday. Okay, no comments from anybody? Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.